Good day, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another special edition of One News on CAM1 radio and the television. First, our headlines. The inhabitants of Limbe witnessed a spectacular march past 20th May at the esplanade of the Manga Williams Avenue, which took place under the theme, the army, the nation turned towards peace and prosperity. And it was also under the chairmanship of the senior divisional officer for FACO, Viang Njebe Mekala. In this edition of the news, we bring special updates on the Dinga Produce murder, as another business operator by the name of Achu Roland is allegedly reported to have spearheaded this affair. We also talk about Miss Mama Africa 2025, which is taking place today at the Sime Beach Hotel. As we are speaking right now, there are already buses waiting for people at the half-mile neighborhood right here in the town of Limbe. Plus, we are also going to look into the European League finals, which took place yesterday, where Tottenham beat Manchester United by 1-0 at the Mames Stadium in the Spanish city of Bilbao. Those are top stories in today's edition of the news. Good morning again, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another edition of One News. As we earlier said, the city of Limbe was lit this 20th May 2025 following the National Day celebration with a host of dignitaries who engulfed the Manga Williams Avenue. The message on the theme for the celebrations was clear as water. The army and the nation turned towards peace and prosperity, and the military parades spoke volumes on that day. We have details in the following report. The 53rd edition of the National Day in Cameroon was yet another reminder to the entire population that we are a sovereign and unified nation under the protection of solid military corps. Reason why the theme for this edition was the army and the nation turned towards peace and prosperity. And indeed, the town of Friendship Limbe was at the rendezvous with one-of-a-kind parade from various military corps, such as the Rapid Intervention Battalion, the National Marines, the National Gendarmerie, the Infantry, and the National Police, amongst others, who all showcased their strength and prowess at the esplanade of the Manga Williams Avenue. It was also the perfect occasion to assess the energetic levels of the future leaders of tomorrow following the march past of secondary and high school students across Limbe who came in their numbers from government and private schools alike. But one of the most important parts of this parade was the apparition of so many political party factions who were busy marching and passing across powerful and intriguing messages, reminding every Cameroonian of the importance of patriotism and self-belonging. A message which was equally transmitted by the senior divisional officer for FACO, Viang Njebe Mekala, who chaired the ceremony.
As said, I agree with me that wonderful masters and success. We have that's celebrated our national joys and sense of patriotism. I want to thank this story for the success of the event. The operation came out massively and the turnout was satisfactory. So I think that's a message that is coming from that peace has come back and that showcase of the living together, showcase of the patriotism as the theme of this year was mentioning army and nation united for return towards peace. We are happy that it is perfect.
is worth noting that this 53rd edition of the National Day celebrations in Limbe was symbolic, following the award of medals to many senior civil servants for their longevity in service and for serving their beloved country tirelessly. The National Day celebrations this 2025 also marks 10 years to the nearing of Cameroon becoming an emergent nation by 2035. We talk something else and on to one of our major lead stories. Following the murder of renowned business magnate Zinga Protus in the town of Limbe, we have updates on the case, and a certain Arthur Roland is allegedly reported to have spearheaded the murder. He was summoned to the court of first instance yesterday, 21st May 2025, alongside other culprits. A court session which was chaired by Magistrate Samandi Valerie. According to reports gotten from our sources in court, the case still has a lot of underlying factors which need to be fact-checked. But as it stands, Arthur Roland has pleaded not guilty to having anything to do with the murder of late Zinga Protus. The case has also been adjourned to the 28th of May 2025 as investigations are currently going on. Now we talk something completely different. As we actually announced during our headlines, we talked about Miss Mama Africa, which is taking place today at the Sime Beach Hotel right here in the opaque city of Limbe, as Africa's heartbeat echoes louder as we celebrate beauty, resilience, and sustainability. This edition of Miss Mama Africa is not just a showcase of elegance, but a movement towards empowerment, culture, and a greener future. A huge thank you to Sime Beach Hotel, the major sponsor for the opening its doors to this grand celebration. Now it's good to join us for an unforgettable experience who will rise above the challenges to claim the crown. Witness the fierce competition unfold with the Miss Maman Cuisine contest and the dazzling Best Bikini contest on the beaches. Your presence makes a difference. Come in large numbers to cheer for your favorite candidate. Voting is still open. Make your choice count and cast your votes at voteafrica.com/Miss Maman Africa 2025. The grand finale was also going to take place on Saturday, May 24th in Douala. The final battle for the crown is near. As you secure your tickets through these numbers: 697058963 or 698175473, and witness the crowning moment of Miss Mama Africa 2025 as we make history together. As I'm speaking to you right now, there are already buses waiting for people who are interested in going for this particular event at the Seme Beach Hotel. You can actually meet the buses at half mile right now in the town of Limbe. We talk something completely different in this edition of the news and dive immediately to our international page. The Vatican has warned of fake Pope messages to President Ibrahim Traore. The Vatican has issued a note warning that a 36-minute video message circulating on YouTube attributed to Pope Leo XIV and addressed to Burkina Faso's President Ibrahim Traore is fake. The video is said to have been created using artificial intelligence to make it appear as though the Pope is delivering an address to President Traore. Also, we talk something else. The Economic Freedom Fighters, in its acronym EFF, has taken note of the press briefing held jointly by the President of South Africa, Cyril Ramaphosa, and the President of the United States of America, Donald Trump. The meeting, which came under the pretext of discussing diplomatic trade and economic relations, ended up being a discussion about the President and Commander-in-Chief of the EFF, Julius Malema, and his correct and principled position regarding the return of the land to African people and the return of the means of production into the hands of the African majority. In what comes as no surprise, Cyril Ramaphosa and his delegation, which was constituted by the likes of Stellenbosch, racist billionaire John Rupert, and Donald Trump's golfing buddy Emmy Earls, and Minister of Agriculture and leader of the racist Democratic Alliance DA, John Steenhuisen, was an interaction dominated by white privileged men who have amassed wealth at the expense of African people who spent a majority of time expressing their hatred of the EFF and its leader, Julius Malema. Trump proceeded to play numerous clips of the president of the EFF wherein our leader spoke correctly about the unequal distribution of land in South Africa and sang the chant "Kill the Boer, Kill the Farmer," which is a song that expresses the desire to destroy the system of which minority control over the resources of South Africa. This liberation chant was considered as part of African heritage by the Equality Court, which also said the song could not be interpreted literally. The Supreme Court of Appeal and the Constitutional Court of South Africa then ratified this decision. Ladies and gentlemen, let's talk sports. Tottenham ended their 17-year wait for a trophy as Brennan Johnson's first half goal was enough to beat Manchester United in the Europa League finals. A victory means under fire head coach Ange Postecoglou, who has fulfilled the promise to deliver silverware in his second season at Spurs. Postecoglou, who said he would never be a clown in his pre-match address, brought smiles and unbridled joy to the faces of 15,000 official and many unofficial Tottenham fans in Bilbao's San Mamés Stadium. Victory may not have saved Postecoglou from a Spurs exit in the coming weeks, but the Australian will live as a hero after joining Bill Nicholson and Keith Buckinshaw in winning a European trophy with the North London Giants. In addition to following the lead of Newcastle and Crystal Palace in making this a season of glory for clubs who rarely, if ever, win a trophy, Tottenham were also set to benefit from a £100 medal windfall after qualifying for next season's Champions League. And it's also safe to know that this particular, as it will happen in a battle between two lowest placed teams ever to contest a European final. For the losers, there was no silver lining. Manchester United head coach Ruben Amorim will send his side into the final Premier League game of the season against Aston Villa on Sunday with huge questions over his ability to make them competitive following their worst season since 1973 and the 74 relegation campaign. Amorim enjoys the backing of the ownership, but his decision to pick Mason Mount ahead of Alejandro Garnacho in an attacking role did not work. And with skipper Bruno Fernandes usually subdued, United lacked the guile to drag themselves back into the game once they had fallen behind. They came close to an equalizer with a Rasmus Højlund header following a Guillermo Vicaros error that was acrobatically cleared off the line by Mikli van de Ven midway through the second half. Vicario then made a dramatic late save to keep out Luke Shaw's header. Also, still in sports, we want to just say that congratulations to Victoria United here of Limbe, also fondly called Opopo, who beat Cotton Sport yesterday at the Centenary Stadium right here in the town of Limbe by 3-1, with goals from Tetego, which was a penalty at the 9th minute, and Richmond also a penalty at the 36th minute. At the Big Jig also scored a very beautiful goal at the 69th minute to beat Cotton Sport by 3-1. Ladies and gentlemen, it is with that sports note that will end the first part of the news on CAM1 radio and television. The second part comes up next, which is our daily press review. Yes, we are back again for the second part of our newscast today on the CAM1 radio and the television. We start today with the National Post, which is out on the stands as we speak. The National Post, which is a bi-weekly newspaper, reports today that National Day celebrations, SDF sends strong election signal. As you can see, they also say the Social Democratic Front parties a grandiose show of strength in the two Anglophone regions, the North Littoral and other zones during Tuesday's May 20th March past is described by analysts as a subtle representation of the major upset the party may orchestrate during the forthcoming 2025 presidential elections, as well as the municipal and legislative polls. You can read this particular story today on page 2 of the National Post. Also on the roundup section of the National Post, Digital Rights Index, Cameroon registers failed marker. You can read this particular story today on page 4 of the National Post. Plus in the Southwest, internal crisis rocks Southwest Regional Assembly, page 4 still of the National Post is where you can read this particular story. There's also a sports section today of the National Post where they talk about football Cameroon to challenge Uganda and Equatorial Guinea in Morocco invitational tourney, which is on page 8. That is just to say Cameroon is going to face Uganda and Equatorial Guinea in Morocco during an invitational tournament. You can read this particular story today on page 8 of the National Post. We have the Guardian Post, which up next. The Guardian Post says discriminatory sharing of national cake. Key institutions Anglophones have never headed since Independence, Senate Economic and Social Council General, Secretariat of the Presidency of the Republic, plus Civil Cabinet of the Presidency of the Republic and National Gendarmerie, Ministry of Finance, Ministry of Defense, Port Authority of Douala, Ministry of Economic Planning and Regional Development, National Hydrocarbons Corporation, Port Authority of Kribi, National Oil Refinery Corporation Sonara, Cameroon Radio Television, National Employment Fund, General Delegation of National Security, Special Council Support Fund for Mutual Assistance FEICOM, Debt Recovery Corporation, DRC, Cameroon Airlines Corporation, CAMECO, and Cameroon News and Publishing Corporation, SOPECA. Autonomous Sinking Fund is also on the list, known as CAA. You can read all of these stories today on page 3 of the Guardian Post, where they say discriminatory sharing of national cake as key institutions Anglophones have never headed since independence. Also, we have 2025 presidentials. Akere Muna unveils blueprint to liberate Cameroon. You can read this particular story today on page 5 of the Guardian Post. And also the editorial part of the Guardian Post talks about a day with President Paul Biya. Another must-read story today on the Guardian Post on page 4 of its publication. We have Cameroon Insider up next. Cameroon Insider reports today that Kribi Port generates over 1.2 billion or trillion in 7 years. As the Cameroon Insider reports, the figure indicates an increasing strength of customs revenue collection at Kribi since the infrastructure began operation in March 2018, positioning the infrastructure as the second largest national contributor in terms of customs revenue after the port of Douala. You can read this particular story today on page 10 of the Cameroon Insider. Also, remembering Little Mafis, the Mataya, another story which could be read on the Cameroon Insider, where they say a 6-year-old Mafis was stabbed to death in the Gwa Ekele neighborhood of Yaoundé on May 10th by his father's friend and neighbor in the wake of a brawl between the two. His death has since triggered public outrage and calls for justice. The Cameroon Insider calls him a national hero and a martyr. Now, you can also see that a National Day feast across the nation, shows of majesty might, is also what is being showcased today on the Cameroon Insider, where the 53rd edition of Cameroon's National Day was celebrated with pomp and pageantry across the country on Tuesday, 20th of May, in the nation's capital. The head of state and the commander-in-chief of the armed forces, President Paul Biya, presided over the civilian and military parade, which laid bare Cameroon's rich cultural heritage and military prowess. President Biya later communed with over 10,000 Cameroonians during a sumptuous reception at the State House. You can read this particular story today on the Cameroon Insider. Also, presidential decree appoints in CCIM, CONAC, ELECAM, and Ministry of Economy and Planning. You can read this particular story today on page 7 of Cameroon Insider. I also have the Voice paper, which is also out on the stands as we speak. The Voice reports today that Akere Muna issues steering call for change on 53rd National Unity Day. Plus, at Simba Bafusam workshop, media practitioners vow to uphold truth, fairness ahead of October elections. Also, Mr. celebrates 53rd National Unity Day with unprecedented mobilization as Professor Fu Kalisu supports fuels massive CPDM turnout in that part of the country. And still on the Voice, we have National Day celebrations in mention also been showcased on their paper as SGO Abdullahi Aliyu notes a massive turnout, urges respect for rule of law amidst recent tensions. And also Cameroonian optometrist Dr. Enontai Ayok Tang achieves doctoral milestone in South Africa. Those are the major stories today on The Voice and all the papers you have actually been seen today on this particular edition of our Daily Press Review. Ladies and gentlemen, we actually put a final full stop to this edition of our Daily Press Review and the One News compilation. Thank you very much for your keen attention for presentation. Of course, I was Ekome Charles Abane. Until next time.